Good afternoon. Welcome back to those that are coming back and joining us. I'm going to give it a couple of minutes as normal, just to let everyone filter in. I hope you've all enjoyed the session so far. And as again, the chat box and the Q&A box is open. So please interact whilst we're going on through the session. Please ask questions. We will come back to them at the end. We've got a great lineup for this panel. I'm excited about this one this afternoon. I'll just give it a couple more minutes, or a couple more seconds, I should say. I always feel like you need a video at this bit while people are waiting, just a little background. Okay, right, so welcome back this afternoon. This is a panel debate and we are asking the experts, and we have got some cracking experts as well for this session. We're going to be asking the experts how to juggle your to-do list and manage better your workload. So before we come to our panelists, I want to thank Francis Sharman, who's from the Marriott, for sponsoring this session. So with the Marriott hotels, with the largest portfolio of hotels across the UK, Europe and Middle East and Africa, Marriott Hotels is committed to welcoming you back safely, including their hybrid meetings, flexible booking terms and exclusive discount rates. So I think we're all so excited to get back to lives. I'll get your slides up now for you, and over to you, Francis.
Great, thank you, Charlotte. Hi, hi everyone. I'm delighted to be speaking with you all today. My name is Francis Sharman. I'm the National Account Manager in our corporate team for Marriott International in the UK. I'd like to introduce to you our new Marriott programme called Marriott Bonvoy Business Ready. If you'd like to move to the next slide, Charlotte. So if you book direct with us, you'll have exclusive access to an 8% discount on our bed and breakfast rates. It will also give you mobile check-in options, late checkout, upgraded Wi-Fi, and your guests will receive 2,500 Marriott Bonvoy points if they are new members when they stay on their first night on this great programme. Also, we will be offering you exclusive food and beverage options that are available of all of our Marriott properties that are participating in Europe, Middle East and Africa. If you move to the next slide as well, Charlotte, for me. You'll see all of the benefits, etc., mentioned on there for you. I also wanted to point out to you at the moment our Marriott's commitment to clean, making sure that we have our upgraded cleanliness options for you in all of our hotels. We also are able to offer hybrid meetings in all of our hotels as different options for you. And we have green screens already set up in a lot of our London hotels for you. So please do feel free to contact me. My contact details are on the slide above. And if you have any questions, please do ask. And we'd love to get you back traveling with us as soon as possible. And please contact if you have any accommodation or meeting requirements for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And if anyone's got any questions for Francis, please come back to us at the end and we'll come back to you a bit later on. Her contact details will be shared as well after. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Okay, so we've now got a fantastic lineup for you. I can see the chat box is going off already. It's gone already. I think I'm just going to step back on this one. But yeah, so we're going to ask, we've got the key industry experts and we're going to be asking them how to juggle your to-do list and better manage your workload. So I'm going to welcome you guys on one at a time. I'm just going to ask you just to give a quick intro. You don't need much introduction. Most people know who you guys are, but let's go with it anyway. So Lucy, I'm going to come to you first.
Hi, I'm Lucy Brazier. I'm the CEO of Marcham Publishing, and we publish what turns into Executive Support magazine tomorrow. But lovely to be here this afternoon.
Thank you, Lucy. Rosemary? Oh, Rosemary, on mute.
Hi, I'm Rosemary Parr. I'm a business skills trainer and the founder of Global PA Association and Training Academy. So lovely to be with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosemary. Yvette, we'll come to you next.
Hi, everyone. My name's Yvette Pearson and I am Chief of Staff at a global aerospace company, ICEYE.
Brilliant, thank you. Gavin?
Hi guys, great to be here. And I help businesses to create 5-star customer experiences. And I do that by delivering interactive online learning events. And I recently launched my first book, Finding Gold Dust. So look out for that. But great to be here and good to see you all.
Thank you, Gavin. And lastly, Skevi.
Hi everyone, my name is Skevi Constantinou. I'm a former executive assistant and founder of the ICEYE.
Thank you. I mean, you guys, everyone knows who you are in the industry. You're very well known, and I want to thank you personally for coming on today and joining us on this panel. So our first question, Lucy, I'm going to start with you. In your opinion, has working from home increased or decreased productivity?
I think it rather depends what situation you find yourself in. Because what I'm finding with the assistants that are writing to us is that either they are utterly overwhelmed with the amount of work they've got because everybody else has been furloughed and they're having plenty thrown at them. And quite a lot of it, just like the last recession, which is the only thing we can equate this to, is work that they don't actually know how to do and haven't had any training on. So that's one side of it. On the other side, there are assistants sitting there saying, I really don't have enough work to do. I don't know what I'm meant to be doing. They aren't telling me what it is that I should be doing. And therefore, they are twiddling their thumbs a bit and worrying that when they get to the end of this, there won't be a job for them. I have to say, get a grip, actually. I think you need to be asking them what they need you to do, because that's your role, to save them time, and they've never needed time like they've needed it now. So, and having said all that, I went from working in an office, oh gosh, yes, about 10 years ago now, to working at home. And certainly it made me more productive because I didn't have a 4-hour commute, and I don't think anybody will be missing that.
Definitely not. I only live down the road and I don't miss the commute. Skevi, same question to you.
So from the membership that I run, I think from the feedback that I've got, assistants have increased their workload since working from home and therefore productivity. But a few of them have said that they feel like their productivity has decreased because they're trying to juggle everything, being working parents, trying to be there for their executives, looking after their own mental health. So they feel like they're not being that productive, but ultimately it's almost like contradicting because they are so productive, if that makes sense. So yeah, I've seen a real breadth of different scales of productivity. My own productivity's gone even higher since working from home and not having any physical events or going to meetings. But yeah, you've just got to make sure that you're really protecting your energy as well. Because I find that it's a lot easier to stay online, not have a lunch break, not take, walking breaks or anything since working from home.
Thank you, Skevi. We'll go to Gavin and then we'll come to Yvette after. Gavin, what's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, the key thing is, and it's been mentioned by Lucy and Skevi already, it pretty much depends on your circumstances. And I know that with 3 children at home, my productivity certainly dipped during lockdown. And with 5 people all trying to get onto the hub, and my broadband at home is probably not used to having 5 people trying to get onto the hub, it wasn't the most productive time. But certainly now that the children have gone back to school and with good diary management and my Wi-Fi taking a breather, I'm a lot more productive now than I was over the last 2 or 3 months.
Brilliant. And I know, Yvette, you wanted to add something as well to that, didn't you?
Yeah, just really quickly, I guess from my own personal experience, my workload has increased massively over the last few months. And I would say that my motivation to do that work has dropped. It's been really challenging to get out of bed and do work. What I have noticed is I seem to be really, really busy doing perhaps a project. And then by the time I speak to my boss about it, the whole project has changed. And effectively, I've wasted a load of time. So where I've been lucky enough to go into the office once a week over the last few weeks. And whilst I don't necessarily get as much done because there's a little bit of office chatter with sort of 3 of us there, which is lovely, I'm finding that we're making decisions quicker. We are cutting out all of the rubbish that we don't need to do. And we're finding we're being much more targeted in what we're working on. So I find it, the workload has gone up massively. But I don't think it's necessarily productive work that we're always doing.
Okay, thank you. Rosemary, I'll come to you quickly. What additional pressures do you think this has put on EAs and PAs?
I think that a lot of pressure has been put on in trying to manage the communication with their bosses remotely. A lot of the ones that have been on my courses have said that the frustration of finding a way that they like to communicate, whether it's Zoom, WhatsApp, Teams, or whatever. And so trying to get into their heads and know what's coming up. So, you know, that's one of the things that we teach them, to kind of have access to their inboxes, read their sent items, so know what's in their minds and what's important priorities for them at the time. And the other thing they've said to me is that they've had to suddenly become tech gurus and learn all the different software packages, and you know, which one is going to be the best one for their business. So yeah, there's some of their challenges. Yeah, definitely.
Brilliant, thank you. And like, Yvette, have you found the same thing with your team?
Yeah, so I guess expanding on Rosemary's point slightly about becoming gurus, technology gurus, EAs are relied on so much to just know how to do stuff. You know, we used to have, you know, I remember the first time we had video conference technology installed into the boardroom, and EAs were just expected to know how it worked, even though we had no idea, same as everyone else, but we just figured it out. We're finding that our bosses are sort of asking us to, you know, just come up with an event that's suitable for remote working people, or just come up with something to help people's mental health. And we're just being lent on to just become these experts all of a sudden, which is putting on loads and loads of pressure, because, you know, a lot of us are in exactly the same boat as everyone else, yet we're sort of trying to champion everything and keep everyone motivated when, you know, we are struggling just as much as everyone else in some instances.
I understand. Lucy, I'll come back to you. Do you use task management software to help manage your to-do lists? If so, what do you use? Or would it be Matthew that does it for you?
Well, Matt does a lot of it for me, my EA, yes, but we tend to use Trello because we're all virtual and always have been. So, you know, the team is now based all over the world. And coming back to Rosemary's point on communication, I think that really making sure that we are talking every day, Matt and I, my EA and I, is particularly important, not least because when you understand that 55% of communication is about body language, and it's 38%, which is the tone and pace and pitch of voice, and only 7% that is words. If you're communicating purely by email and by WhatsApp, that can take on a tone. So really important, I think, that you are sitting, looking at somebody, if you possibly can, so that you can see what they're trying to tell you. And if that isn't possible, jump on a phone call. But as far as to-do lists are concerned, I don't like to-do lists much. I tend to time box my day so that I have maybe 3 or 4 things a day that I know I've absolutely got to get done. Because when I'm sitting there and I've got a to-do list in front of me, it's deeply depressing, because you get to the end of the day and you're saying, oh my word, I've got so much I've still got to get to. Whereas if you've time boxed it, you can go, yay, I did the 2-3 things I said I was going to do today, and then you can celebrate. So yeah, that's how we manage time. But Matt and I talk 10 minutes every day, face to face, to make sure that we're both on the same page.
Brilliant. And same question to Gavin.
Yeah, similar to Lucy, really. The night before, I always write down what are the 5 most important things that must get done tomorrow, or nothing else matters. And I think I got that from Brian Tracy's book. I think it was Eat the Frog. And so, and the following day, I make sure that you know, I book time in to do those tasks. And if they don't get completed, then they follow over to the following day. And so for me, it's just about, you know, considering the top 5 things that must get done, booking them into your diary, and if they don't get completed, then pick them up the following day. That's what keeps me productive anyway.
Brilliant. And Yvette, do you have any software that you use to help manage your to-do list?
Yeah, so a couple of things. So like Lucy, I use Trello for my personal life. I've got a VA who helps me with some things, and we use that because it's I put things into little boxes, and you know, my to-do list, my brain is all over the place, so it helps me sometimes get it all down. At ICEYE, we actually use Confluence quite a lot, and the reason why that's quite useful is we can create a shared page for everyone to go and have a look at, but people can't necessarily edit it. And it kind of just keeps everyone up to date with who's working on something, where we are in the process. And it's just something for people to go and refer to. And you can tag people in it and all that kind of stuff. So we use that quite a lot for some of the more complicated projects that we're working on as a company.
Thank you. Thank you, Yvette. So next question, I'm going to come to Skevi next. Similarly, with regards to generally managing your workload, is there any tech or software you found that's proven invaluable?
I'm probably the worst person to ask, and Lucy's laughing because she probably knows. I'm the old school, like, weekly planner kind of pretty stationary kind of girl. So for me, no, because I am very much paper, pen kind of process. Don't get me wrong though, going back to what Lucy's saying, I do time block in my diary on Outlook, and I use that as a to-do list as well. But for my own sanity, I have to get it out on paper. So no apps or anything for me, unfortunately.
It's interesting actually, because I'm the same. As well. And we had one all on tech last session. I was like, this is going straight over my head.
Yeah.
Rosemary, how about you? Do you have any sort of tech?
Well, it's interesting what Skevi says, because I mean, I write things down as well. I need to write, and it's very much that coordination of, you know, the brain and the hand coordination actually helps retain it in the memory. And when I was working for Sir Christopher, you know, I had my to-do book on the desk listing out every day what we were doing, and he'd pick it up when he was walking into his office and say, right, what is on that list that we haven't done today? So I carried on that formula from working for him, and I still do that today. But I also use OneNote, and I find that's absolutely brilliant, because you can pop in some thoughts and notes from your Outlook, and obviously you can have all different notebooks. And I think when you're worried about things you're going to forget, OneNote is my backup. So when thoughts come into my mind, gosh, I need to do that, I need to do that, and putting them in there, and then, you know, they're never forgotten. Whereas otherwise you end up with scraps of paper and things like that. So it's a combination of the technology and the good old fashioned writing as well.
Amazing. And Gavin, how about yourself?
Yeah, it certainly sounds like OneNote is a winner, because Lindsay's said in the chat box that she uses that all of the time. There's a couple that I use. I use Trello, which are mentioned by other people on the panel today. When it comes to managing bigger projects, I use something called Monday.com, and so that's certainly been useful. And I use Teamwork when it comes to managing some of the content on the website. And then when it comes to sharing big files, then Dropbox is a winner for me.
I mean, like, how do you prioritize? Because let's be honest, everything is like a priority for you. And I mean, I'll come to you, Yvette, with this one. It must feel like, yeah, everything's a priority. So how do you prioritize it?
Yeah, it's a really good point. And one priority for one person could be someone else's bottom of their to-do list. So it's trying to make people understand the context of what is being asked, and trying to give them an idea of, actually, this tiny thing that you do can help this person with their, you know, with their whole day. I think in terms of when my boss asks me to do things, I very much got into the habit of telling him, I'm right in the middle of this. Is what you're asking me more or less important? Should I delay this? And that quite often what he comes to me with is that something that's really, really important suddenly becomes less important when he knows I'm doing something else. I think when I'm trying to, when I know he's come to me with something and I know that it's for a specific meeting, I do keep an eye on his diary to see whether that meeting gets moved, because if that meeting gets moved, say, or cancelled for like a week, that request could change completely. So if I carry on doing the request that he's asked me, knowing that that meeting has been delayed by a week or so, I know that he could very well come back to me when I've sent him my response, and he'll turn around to me and say, oh, actually, I don't need that anymore, or oh, the whole thing's changed direction. So it's trying to be proactive and understand what you're doing it for, who you're doing it for, and just making sure that those priorities of the person that's asked you don't change.
Lovely, thank you. Lucy, same question to yourself.
Absolutely. So going to what Yvette is saying, I think I'm a nice person, but I'm forever saying to Matt, this thing's really urgent. Could you possibly take this? Because this is also really urgent. And actually, this is even more urgent. And he occasionally goes, you know. So then going back to the time boxing, he has his own calendar that we both have that's shared. And it's a really, really good point if you've got more than one executive, actually, because if you're able to time block the things that you're doing for other people, quite often Matt will say to me, okay, that sounds like it is really urgent, but where? Where would you like me to put this in the calendar? And then we sit there and I go, well, actually, that isn't such a big priority. Maybe we can do it in a couple of weeks' time and say it gets put in the calendar there. Or I can say, well, actually, I think it is really a priority and therefore we can juggle things around. But if both your executives, or if you've got more than two, all of them can see exactly what it is you're working on, it stops that blindness where you're thinking, well, what are they doing? Because my thing hasn't been done yet. And I also think it's down to communication again. It's having that conversation every day, because that 10 minutes every morning where we sit down and we go, okay, so what have you got in your calendar today? All right, the major priority there today is this, or actually that isn't so important anymore. Let's take it out and replace it with something else. The communication is key, I think.
Definitely. I'll come to you in a minute, Gavin. I'm just going to go to Skevi first. I know you've got some points on this as well, haven't you?
Yeah.
So is it Gavin or me? Oh, sorry.
Skevi first. Sorry,
sorry.
Gavin, you come on in just a second. Sorry.
No, it's okay. So when I was in the prime of my career and supporting executives, I used to have for myself like a traffic light system that I used to work with my executives. So anything that was red was like super urgent. You know, it had to be done now, business crucial. Yellow, amber, where it was like it needed to be done now, but not as urgent. And then green, it's like you have to do that task, but you know, you can just carry on as normal. So whenever he used to give me information, I used to say, what traffic light? And he would be like, red. So I'm like, okay, I have to get on it now. And I'd actually have Post-its with the same colours. So if it was like paper documents he was giving me, I'd used to put my traffic light system across that. And it did used to work. And I kind of implement that now with what I'm doing with the PA, where I have like a filing system, no apps. And I have a filing system and it's the same tier system. And it just really, really works for me, because you give back the control to them, because they're giving you the task, and then you go back to them and say, you know, red, orange or green, and then they tell you, so you're putting the ball in their court to almost dictate to you the urgency of what it does, and it helps you be more productive as a result. So you're not flapping around thinking everything's super urgent.
Thank you. Gavin, we'll come to you quickly.
Yeah, and the key thing is, once you've got real clarity on what needs to get done, then you can push back with that question that's where you can position it and say, which one of these would you like to deprioritize, right? And that question in itself makes people think a bit differently. But also, and this came from Stephen Covey, you know, I look like I'm an air traffic controller, right? And I think about air traffic controllers, and there's, let's say, you know, well, there's not right now, but normally there's hundreds of planes in the sky. But the air traffic controller, they focus on landing one plane. And I think this came from Stephen Covey. And so the key thing is, okay, I know there's 200 planes up there, but which one's the most important right now? Let's land that one, and then let's move on. Okay, and then we just shuffle things around a little bit. So I think, you know, I've got the headset on, I'm thinking like an air traffic controller, but that helps when it comes to making sure I focus my attention on landing one plane, doing one task, and then I move on to the next one.
Great analogy. Thank you, Gavin. Thank you. Rosemary, I'm going to come to you next. What are your top tips for how PAs and EAs can manage the expectations of their executives?
Well, you are the second brain of your bosses, so it's very much, I believe, that you should be able to see their inboxes, you should be able to read their sent items, to know what they're thinking, to know what their priorities are. And I think, you know, a lot of EAs and PAs that I work with often say, but I haven't got access, I'm not allowed it. And I think you really have to put forward a business case for that, because it's absolutely crucial. If I hadn't known what, you know, reading Sir Christopher's inbox and sent items, I wouldn't have known what his urgent priorities were when I was managing 4 chairmanships for him. So we were constantly realigning and rejuggling everything and reprioritizing as we went along. And I think also you have to have a real interest in the business you're in. You've got to know what its competitors are. You've got to know what your business actually does, because sometimes I notice that some people can't articulate very clearly what exactly their company does. So it's kind of really having an interest in the success of your business and where it's going, because then you're becoming more of a business right-hand sort of manager with your boss. When you're excited about the wins that your business has and the growth that it has as well. So to me, I think that's a really important part when you're working at that top level. Absolutely vital. Yeah.
Brilliant. Skevi, I'll come to you next.
I think I'm just going to shadow basically what Rosemary said. I think it's really important, and I have met a lot of assistants who don't understand what the business does. And me myself, I've been guilty of that with some jobs that I've had. I didn't really understand what the company did, and I think that's kind of set me up to fail. You know, because I didn't take that development and research in the beginning as such. So yeah, I'm pretty on the same wavelength of what Rosemary is saying. I think go into the sent inbox outbox as well. I used to do that in the mornings, because it just saves you duplicating tasks and having unnecessary conversations if you can be proactive and eliminate some of those before the executives even walk through the door. So yeah.
Thank you. We'll just go to Lucy next, then we'll finish up with Yvette as well for this question. So Lucy, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are that absolutely, as the last 2 panelists have said, there's a great deal of difference between knowing and understanding. And I think assistants can know a lot about their businesses without really understanding it. And when it comes to your executive, so many assistants say to me, oh, we're coming up to our appraisal and I'm not quite sure what I should be setting as objectives, because they don't understand what success looks like for their executive, because they've never had that conversation, and nor do they understand what their goals for the year and their key performance indicators are as set by the business. Well, how can you possibly support at the highest level unless you know those things? And how can you prioritize? So to me, it's a conversation to go away and have. What is it that the business is needing you to achieve this year, and how do you fit into the bigger picture, and how can I ensure that you get to where you need to be?
Thank you. And Yvette?
So this reminds me of a conversation I had about 10 years ago when I worked for quite a large investment bank. I could not articulate what they did. I knew I worked with traders. I knew they traded. That was sort of it. And the question somebody asked me, which really helped me work out what I needed to know to understand what we did. And he said, how does the company or the department that you work in, how do they make money? And if you can answer that question in 1 or 2 sentences, you sort of get to the crux of what it is that the company does. You know, they in that instance, it was, you know, they trade and they make a margin on the trade. It was as simple as that. And then you can sort of start to elaborate on that. And then sort of taking it one step further to understand some of the pitfalls that your company may be facing is how could they lose money? Now, in the industry that I'm in now, I work in aerospace, and you know, we could lose money by one of our satellites breaking down or something impacting the launch. And when you understand that, then you start to work backwards and you understand why other people's jobs who you might not know anything about, why they're so important. Why do we have, you know, a whole army of software engineers? You know, the reason for that is because the tech has to work. Otherwise, if the satellite goes up and the tech doesn't work, it's not going to take images of the Earth and we're not going to make any money. So those 2 questions, how do they make money? How do they lose money? Is a really good starting point to answer the question, what does your company do?
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Yvette. We've got one last question for the panelists before we go to the Q&A. I'm just going to ask each one of you now for your top tip to help PAs manage their workload. And I'm going to start with you, Lucy.
Communication, every time. Where it all falls down is always when you're not communicating properly. So if you're not sure what the priority is, ask and make sure that everybody is clear on what your workload is and what is coming up.
Brilliant, thank you. And Rosemary?
Practice the 4 Ds. And the 4 Ds are either do it, delegate it, defer it, or dump it. Okay, and use
I like that one. I'm going to use that myself. I do really like that. Yvette.
So mine is always to proactively update, and I guess it links to Lucy's point around communication. If I've got a lot on my plate and I know that my boss has asked for something and I know it's overdue, I can't bear it when he says to me, have you done X? And I know that I've got to do it and I haven't done it yet, and it drives me mad. So I'll send him we use Slack. I'll send him a quick Slack message and say, I know you asked me to do this. I've just finished up something else. It'll be with you shortly, because I just can't bear people chasing me for stuff that I know I've got to do. It just makes me feel useless. So proactively update people on their requests so they don't chase you.
Thank you. And Gavin?
I think the key thing for me is, if you want to be productive, you've got to take care of yourself. And so I would say book time in for you. I mean, before this session, I had a half-an-hour walk, but that helps to give some clarity of thinking. If I'm clear in my thinking, I'm better at making decisions. If I make better decisions, I get better results. So I would say make sure that you focus on a bit of self-care. And in the world right now, that's key. So book time in for you, and that in itself is going to help you to be productive.
Thank you, Gavin. And lastly, Skevi, what are your thoughts? Your top tip?
1,000% what Gavin said. I'm on the same wavelength there. I was going to say self-care. I always book in Wellness Wednesday so that I don't forget. And I put in like 1 or 2 hours to make sure that I stay on my A game. Because if you burn out, then what use are you to absolutely anybody else? So yeah, definitely self-care.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So that's it for our questions for the panel, but we do have quite a few in the Q&A and the chat box. And I'm going to come to that after. Just before we go to that, we're going to hear from one of our other sponsors, which is Terry Farthing from London Jet Charter. Hi, Terry, are you on now?
Hi, Charlotte. Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me here today. I prepared a short video that Charlotte's going to show in a moment that I designed for PAs. But I just wanted to say that although flying is currently pretty difficult, we also do helicopter charters. We do them throughout the UK. So, you know, time is money for you people. You need to do it either for business or pleasure. You know, please give me a call and I would ensure that I dealt with anyone for the PA life's events personally. Okay, so our little tagline is London Jet Charter for those who fly smarter. So thanks for watching the video. Thanks a lot. Are you responsible for your company's travel arrangements? My name is Terry Farthing, and I'm the MD of London Jet Charter. We deliver the 5-star experience you always imagined travelling by private jet would be. If you're an executive assistant or a personal assistant whose principals need to travel, who have not considered private jet charter, now is the time to explore the benefits. Private jet charter is efficient, fast and safe. Call me today with the routing and I will talk you through what is needed for me to prepare quotations. I'll then provide options and ensure that you can confidently explain the benefits of each, so that you can recommend the aircraft that best suits your needs. Please don't hesitate to call me today to see how I can help, and I will deal with all matters personally. London Jet Charter, for those who fly smarter.
Brilliant. I love your tagline, Terry.
Thanks, Charlotte. Listen, have a great day and thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Right, so let's go to the Q&A. I'm going to start with the actual Q&A box because I've got 2 questions in here, and I've got a question for Yvette, first of all. Can you explain the difference between your role as Chief of Staff and an Executive Assistant?
Yeah, so this is a great question and one I think that gets asked quite a lot. I've obviously spent 15 odd years in EA, Office Manager, PA roles. Then I moved into Sales Ops and now Chief of Staff. I guess the main difference is towards the analytical side of things, certainly from my perspective. My boss will reach out to his EA for scheduling his meetings, his travel, his expenses, and all those kinds of things. But in terms of the documentation he might need for those meetings, he turns to me. I'm responsible for making sure that he's got all of the sales data that he needs. I'm more sort of helping him on the strategic side, and also I'm his, I guess, confidant in a way, the person that he bounces ideas off of in terms of how the team might be structured, the things that we want to be focusing on, and just generally helping him out, managing the team. I run our weekly team meetings on his behalf. So I guess in the same way that an EA could mean many different things, a chief of staff can also mean many different things, and it depends on what your boss really needs. But certainly from my perspective, it's much more on the strategic and analytical side. Hopefully that answers the question.
Thank you, Yvette. We've got another one as well. So it says it's open to anybody. When working from home, how do you maintain a cool head in an endless team and management meetings? When missing out on social cues, when to speak, chair meetings. Also, do you need permission of all the participants to record meetings for the minutes? And do you have any issues with confidentiality if published to a wider audience? Anyone that wants to pick that up first? Gavin, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll look at the first chunk of the question around how to maintain a cool head. I think it's important that we spend time resetting in between Zoom and team meetings, and that's just about changing your physiology. And so, one thing that we can do that just helps to change our state of mind is to get up, get a cup of tea. If it's been a bad session, get a chocolate bar as well, and then go back and go in the next one. And, the way that I approach it is I talk about the importance of playing from a 10. So in every interaction, in every meeting, am I playing from a 10? And if I'm not playing from a 10, what can I do to make sure that I move it up a little bit so that I am playing from a 10? So, that's maybe some tips around resetting that will help with the first part of the question.
Thank you. Lucy, you've unmuted.
Yes, I have. What I was going to say is that I think it depends on what role you're in the meeting to play. And if you're sitting, I know a lot of assistants are saying they're really liking this format because you're all in your little boxes. And so you don't have somebody who sweeps into the room and uses body language to intimidate everybody else. You've all got your voice. But to me, assistants should be in leadership meetings. And that's because if you listen to somebody like Sir Richard Branson, for example, he calls Helen Clark, his assistant, his memory. And she goes into those meetings not to take the notes, because there's a very different way of listening if you're there to take the notes than there is if you're there as part of the leadership team. But to be there to watch what your executive is agreeing to, so you can make sure you're holding them to account, to watch what everybody else is agreeing to, so you can hold them to account and chase them in on time, to be watching whether workloads are coming later on down the line, and also to watch what body language is happening to the people who are there, so you can see what they're agreeing with or not agreeing with. And I think if you feel like you're in control in that way and that you are there to do a specific role, it all becomes far less stressful.
Thank you. Yvette, over to you.
Just moving on to the second part of the question around Zoom calls and recording and everything. My experience of this is when we've done some training sessions for the teams, and we effectively at the beginning of the meeting tell everyone it's being recorded and it's likely to be uploaded to our internal systems for everyone to watch. So we tell everyone at the start. Now, I think as far as confidentiality and everything is concerned, if everyone on the meeting sort of agrees, then it's fine. If you're recording, try and record it so that they're agreeing, so then you can get them on camera, say that they're okay with it. Otherwise, I think of course, you wouldn't want to share recordings of confidential meetings. You need to be careful that they are kept in a safe place and not distributed using insecure methods. But I think generally speaking, certainly for training, we tell everyone it's being recorded. You can even add into the meeting invite that it's being recorded so that people are aware when it starts and they can switch their cameras off or whatever if they want to.
Thank you. And just while we've got you, Yvette, there was another question on here. Someone has said, oh, sorry, Deborah said, Yvette referred to Slack. How does this messaging system work?
So Slack, it's like an instant messaging system, kind of, I guess, a bit like Facebook Messenger, a bit like WhatsApp. It's absolutely brilliant from a company perspective. You can direct message people. Internally, we use it infinitely more than we use email. You just send someone a message, we ping them. But in terms of, you can set up group chats. So we have one for the sales team. We have one for, all different types of people. We have a general chat. We also have we call a random channel, which is basically for jokes and memes and all that kind of rubbish that you normally pass around your WhatsApp groups. And I guess the other thing that we use it for, which is really useful, is when we're working on specific projects or specific deals, we have a Slack channel for that specific project so that we can talk about that project without having to send everyone a direct message. You can include everyone at the same time. And if you're sort of catching up on what's been discussed, you can just scroll back and see everything. There is a way of linking Slack to Salesforce now that Salesforce have bought Slack. We are hopefully going to be integrating the two so that when you're working on certain opportunities from a sales perspective, you can keep all of the chat together. So from an audit trail perspective, it's really good. But just as an overall internal communications tool, it's fantastic. You can see when people are in the office, like logged in, when they're not logged in. You can put little notes against your name to say where you are, or I'm off, contact X, I'm back on Wednesday. Or you can it links up with Gmail, and we use Google Mail and Google Drive, and it automatically tells everyone if you're in a meeting. So have a little meeting notification next to it. You can say that you're off sick. You can say all kinds of things. So it kind of gives everyone in the company an update of what you're working on and what you're doing, things like that. So it's absolutely great.
Yeah, thank you. We've got a couple more. We've got time for a couple more. Skevi, I've got Rachel here's asked. I work for two directors, one who has become self-sufficient as I was on furlough during the first lockdown, but the other one is very demanding, and she's finding it difficult to manage both their workloads and to be one step ahead. Do you have any advice on how to prioritise her workload?
That's a really good question. I've been in the same situation, Rachel, so you're not on your own. I think it's just to keep true to who you are in the sense of communicate. So if you feel like it's impacting your workload, you need to have those honest conversations. Don't do what I did. I used to just literally suffer in silence and think it would go away. But they kept adding and adding because I wasn't speaking up. So they thought, oh, Skevi's okay with having extra work. So I think if you have one who's really self-sufficient and the other one's quite demanding, you need to find that balance so that you can be super proactive for both. Take more from the one that's quite self-sufficient so that you can have more interest in your work, but also at the same time, not to be burnt out by the one who is quite demanding. So to me, transparency and honesty is the best policy. And just scheduling a one-to-one and just tell them, this is how you're making me feel, but I also want to be at the top of my game as your assistant. What can I do to support you, but whilst making sure that we all benefit at the same time? That's what I ended up doing anyway. And it turned out that they were completely oblivious to the fact that I was in this predicament. So they were just really thankful in the end for me speaking up.
Thank you. Rosemary, I'm going to ask this one to you. Do you have any suggestions on how to approach bosses about workload if you feel there is an uneven share with another PA on the team? Sorry, Rosemary.
Yeah, well, I think once again, I think it goes back to looking at your role and exactly what you're doing and making a sort of full job description of what you do and adding to it, and then sort of measuring it maybe against what the other person's you're observing doing. And then sort of, you have to be stick up for yourselves and be bold at work now and ask for what you want. So it's really setting up a one-to-one with your boss. because they, as Skevi's just said, you know, they don't realize all the things you're actually doing, and it's up to you on a regular basis to update them, but with a list, with something they can look at that's tangible in front of them, not just verbal, and say, this is all the things I'm doing to you, this is taking up all my time, and it seems that my workload is, you know, bigger than someone else in the team, and highlighting it to them, because, and I think it's very the same, that they're not aware, they're so in their heads about their own business challenges that they're not aware maybe of the impact they're having on their PA or EA.
Brilliant. Is there anything else anyone else would like to add or to the audience whilst we're here? Are we all good?
I think I would just say that the person who posted that, clearly you're doing a great job, because you keep getting even more work to do. So there's something good that you're doing. And often what happens is when we do good things, we get more, and we get a bit of the runaround dilemma. So one positive to take away is that you're doing a great job. Okay. But in terms of what Rosemary said, that's a great call in terms of sticking up for yourself, looking at your role description and providing them with a specific list of what you're doing and the impact that's having. So, but I hope this is a positive there for you to take away as well.
Brilliant. Lucy, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I just think it's important to remember that, you know, no is a complete sentence. You don't necessarily have to explain yourself and why you're not going to do something. And I'm a great believer that you train people how to treat you. So, you know, if you're not feeling happy and you're feeling overwhelmed, then maybe it's finding ways to push back in a very, very nice way. But, you know, I would love to help you with that, but I'm up to my eyes with this board report. If you give me more lead time next time, I'd be delighted to help you. Or, you know, I would love to help with that, but actually I've got to leave the office on time this evening. So if it would be, you know, possible for you to give me greater lead time next time, I can help you then. So you're not saying no, but what you're doing is, or my favorite actually, which is, of course I can help you, but not until Thursday, if you can bring it back then, because you know they only ever come to you when it's a horrible emergency and their hair's on fire. And so they come, they go, oh, you're such a love, I'll go find somebody else. And they run off in the opposite direction.
That's brilliant, thank you. And unfortunately, that's all we've got time for. I think there's a couple more questions in the chat box. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send around the contact details of everyone in the panel and also for our sponsors. And then anyone can sort of come direct to you guys if they've got any further information that they require. But I mean, this has been a great one and we could probably talk all day. So thank you so much for everyone joining us. Thank you to Marriott. Thank you to London Private Jet Charter as well. Lucy, Yvette, Skevi, Gavin and Rosemary, you've all been amazing. Thank you so much. For those of you that are staying on for the next session, we've got a quick 10-minute break and then we've got Bossing Microsoft Tips with Shelley. So I'll see you all soon. Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.